Hey y'all, welcome back from the no, not welcome back. This is the latest
It's a new
episode.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah, new episode. But welcome to the latest episode of Cruzin with the Coaches, conversation with Julie and Lee, co-host Julie Cruz. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pointed the wrong way. Yeah, there we go. Anything new, anything special going on other than the heat, of
No,
summer?
just the heat of
Anything?
summer and trying to
Yeah.
keep my kids occupied.
Well, if you get them a loofah, no, that was last episode. I'm not. I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah,
Not going to talk about my love for my loofah. It's it's happening. It's a real thing. But I promise we will do an episode, not on just loofahs, but on skincare and all that good stuff.
Sounds good.
No, glad everything is going good, and my loofah says hello. So, so for today's episode, have you ever, or would you ever have considered yourself at any point a people pleaser?
Oh, definitely. As the oldest child growing up,
Hmm.
facts. Facts.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's an oldest child or because I was not the oldest, I was the youngest, but
Mhm.
I can see definite areas too of people pleasing, right?
Okay.
And so it's interesting because that's something that we learn as we grow up anyway. Kids, you want to do what your parents say, right?
Right.
Although there was a point where I did rebel, so I don't know if I was people pleasing, but hey, Um, so that's what we're going to get into today. We are going to talk about how to ditch people pleasing, but how to turn it around into the more positive smile seeking. All right.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not sure if I'm always seeking smiles from people, but definitely not in the people pleasing. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and define these first. And this is from one of my favorite places to read articles. This is from Psychology Today. And people pleasing is typically motivated by fear, or while smile seeking is motivated by compassion. Okay. People pleasing often develops a response in response to fear based family dynamics, while smile seeking is a skill. All right. So let's come back out here. And that's kind of what we were talking about when we were talking about being kids, right?
Mhm.
That's where people pleasing can develop because one, it's parents have some rules or they tell you what to do, and as the kid, you don't want to not do that. You want to do that because there's maybe a reward or God forbid a punishment if you don't do it, and
Right.
so you don't want to have either one of those. So you want to please the parent who's telling you what to do. How do
Which
you
is
feel
when
about? Oh yeah, go ahead.
that's where I'm coming from when I speak of my order, because
Mhm.
as a person who grew up in a household where you are the only child and you have these two adults who are, telling you this, that, or whatever, it's
Mhm.
usually the oldest child who ends up being more of the people pleaser, only
Mm.
because there are only these other two adults and you want to please them. Where when you have that second child come along and you are close to that same age as that second child, the second child is more like, well, what the hell are we listening to these people for? Like, so that you feel
Which
like, yeah, there's two of them, there's two of us, like what are we
right,
doing? So there's just a different
right.
dynamic that happens. But
Mhm.
I, for one, have a 10-year age gap before the next sibling. So
Mhm.
I definitely would say that I had a people pleasing mentality, probably up until,
Like,
yeah, for a long time.
whoa.
For at least half my life. For at least half my
Um,
life.
Gotcha. I'll say, we can say last week. That's fine.
No,
It's up until
no,
last
no,
week. People are
over,
like, do
over,
you know who it is? Uh,
over,
well,
over.
having an age gap, I think, makes a difference too, because mine was 7 years,
Okay.
and that the oldest child or the older child can also feel responsibility and therefore wanting to do more. It can lean towards people pleasing,
Correct.
and I've heard this is a rumor, of course, that the younger children tend to get away with more. I don't
Facts.
know about that.
That's
That's
facts.
that's rumor. I've heard that. I, I
Um,
I can't speak to that. I don't know. You know, being the youngest, I wouldn't believe it, but
well, I can say as a parent of multiple children, there are
mhm.
definitely okay. So my older children. Let's hope they're not listening. Um,
We'll tell
he
them to pass this. Don't listen to this
don't
episode,
listen
guys.
to
Don't.
this episode. But yeah, no, I am acknowledging that my youngest child probably gets away with a lot more than my older children ever have. So
Ooh, I can only imagine
I,
the discussion
I'm
at
just
the
gonna put it out
next
there. I'm gonna say it. It is what it is.
next holiday, the next family gathering. I'll make
I'm in
sure to share
trouble.
this episode everywhere.
I'm in trouble.
Hey, full disclosure though, that's what happens, right?
It's
As
facts.
as
It's
parents,
facts. Yes.
So one of the first, I guess, topics about people pleasing, or not a topic, but motivation, right? So what the article lists was in people pleasing, it's motivated by fear, and people are more likely to appease those who they think have power because there's some kind of threat, right? The positive spin, or the seeking the smiles, is motivated by compassion, and the goal here is to simply bring the best out in another person or the other person. The status, right? There's no rank. It's kind of irrelevant, and so that's the difference here for motivation. um Anything you want to add to this before we move on to the next topic
I
of
mean, I
people
think
pleasing or
that
smile seeking?
the motivation behind it, like just so understanding, like if well, first acknowledging if you
Mhm.
are a people pleaser.
Bingo.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the key right there. Like if
Yeah.
you find yourself always in an internal tug of war, it's
Hmm.
not always about what the other person is doing. It can sometimes be about what you keep putting yourself out there for.
Hmm.
If you're constantly saying, yes, I can, and your capacity is telling you, no, you can't, then you're going to find yourself really stressed out, being very anxious, being at some point possibly depressed because you aren't meeting the deadlines of whatever it is that you keep saying that
worried
you're
about
going
the
to do.
worried about the consequence of what would
Exactly.
happen.
Yep.
And no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
No is a
Yes,
complete
it is.
sentence. It's a hard one to learn. Like
Yes.
it's funny, right? We talked about kids. Kids, yes, there can be some people pleasing um habits that are happening,
Hmm.
but kids also know no very
Yes.
well. And they use it, and we teach them not to use it. I I don't You talked about parenting, and I was like, how many times do we say, don't tell me no? But they're using a whole complete sentence for a reason, you
Right.
know?
Right. Well,
Hmm.
I will tell you, in our household, it has always been, it's not when I ask for something to be done, it doesn't need to be done right in that moment unless I asked you to do it yesterday.
Mm.
Okay. So I have no problem with saying, hey,
Right.
I'm going to need you to do yada, yada, yada. And then,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
cool. I'm not going to, bug out because it's not done by a particular time that I wanted it to be done, so long as it gets done. And
But
that's a
24
boundary.
hours later, or
But
48
24
hours
hours,
later,
you best jump when I say that you need to do this.
J-
But
jump how high?
but again, you even want to raise children who are not people pleasing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
yes, this is something that my parent wants to have done, and I will do that for them because obviously I'm the child, but at the same time, allow them the opportunity to be more or less, okay, I have this I want to do first, and then I
Mhm.
will get to what it is you are asking me.
You're
That's
teaching
okay.
management. It's
Exactly.
how priorities management, time management. That's a skill that I think is a lot of times our kids are disserviced by
Yep.
saying, yeah, do it now, do it this time. Give some parameters on
Yep.
what is acceptable and what's not.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So the next topic they talk about is resentment versus happiness. So in people pleasing, um, if this is part of your actions, it's silent resentment.
Mhm.
You say yes because you feel compelled to, you know. Excuse me. Um, and then in seeking the smiles, and I've seen this before, right? If you're walking down the street or something, but if you smile, it tends to come back to you.
Mhm.
Now, there's no pressure for you to smile at someone. There's no pressure for someone else to smile, but um, it typically can come back to you, and it comes back in like someone else feeling good. You know, I mean that's the way I looked at it. Is especially walking down the street or just walking around, out and about. And if you happen to pass someone and make eye contact and smile, hey, how are you? Good. How are you doing? There's not any pressure for then stopping and having a conversation, right?
Right.
Or asking this person what they're doing or why are you here. It's just they smile, because that might be also awkward
Right.
if it's a
Why are you
random
here?
stranger, right? Well, I'm here to get lunch. How about you? Like, but yeah, there's no pressure that way. Weird thing, I actually had a client this way. I got
Mhm.
a, we were in line and I was getting a coffee at a friend's the owners of the coffee shop are friends of mine. And randomly, person in line turned around and was like, "What do you think is good here?" I was like, "Oh, well," ran down the list of da 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 da. Okay, cool, thank you. Because I've never been to this shop and I kind of just moved here. Hey, cool. You know what? A good shop. I know the owners. Blah blah blah. Right. Person
Mhm.
turns back around again, and said something about, well, I'm kind of torn. And I was like, you know what? Let me get your coffee. Like, I'll treat you. She was like, "Oh, you don't have to." And I was like, "No, let me treat you." Then it turned from there. Turns out this young lady had just left a teaching job and was something else, and was like, "Man, literally the conversation was, I feel like I just don't know what direction I want to take my life. I promise you, that's what she." And I was like, "Well,
But
why don't we
isn't
talk
that
about
amazing? Isn't that amazing? Like all it took was a little bit of engagement
it?"
and
Hmm.
for that person to feel comfortable in basically this person is interested in what I am doing right now.
Hmm.
And
That was
so
it.
it's just yeah, that's the gate. Let's like
Yeah.
they're there, they're ready, they're just want to release, and it's a beautiful thing. It
Because
really
I could have
is.
been like, I don't know what's good here, or I'd have been like,
You
it was
talking to me?
all.
No.
Well, what's even crazier is that I have a QR code, so bought the coffee, and as soon as I gave her the QR code, she scanned it, booked an appointment with me before I got to my car.
See? That's
So
awesome.
there you go. It's
Yes.
that's a smile. See, there was no pressure, right? There was no. I wasn't trying to create a client. All I did was engage with her about the coffee, and then she had something she had to talk about. That
Right.
was it. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
that was one of the funniest things. I was like, wait, she just scheduled an appointment. I hadn't even gotten to my car yet.
No, that is awesome. I love it. I love it.
That was one of the funniest things. All right, the next one is habit versus skill. And so people pleasing becomes a habit, right? It's something, again, we've kind of mentioned this as kids. We kind of create this habit of people pleasing early on because we're trying to do what we're told. We're trying to get the reward or not be punished for not what we're doing. Well, smile seeking takes practice, right?
Mhm.
And as we just learned from the last topic, it's something that you have to learn to do, right? Or as you heard me talk about in that conversation that I got a client from in line to get a coffee, it's a skill that you can develop, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, I guess that was part of what I was thinking about in that conversation and why I shared it. It's not something that comes easily to everyone, right? Having a
It's like
conversation with
for some
random
people, it's
strangers.
very natural. Some people,
Yeah,
it can be very natural, but it's
me.
also, uh,
it's, it's
I was telling my mom's
shocker.
like,
Sorry.
how do you know that person? I was like, I don't know, mom. Like, I literally just met them 2 minutes ago. Like, I
Right,
don't know. But
right.
it's like accepting it. You know what I mean? Like it
Mhm.
being, accepting of the role and understanding that, you know, if you need me, I'm here, and just rolling with it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because in this time and age, you just don't know when someone needs to have that dialogue.
yep.
You have no idea how much a person is having conversations with people or they're not. Maybe they're completely isolated.
Could
I've
be.
had
Yeah,
I've had interviews where, I schedule them for 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes they've gone 2 hours, and it's
mhm,
because that person is isolated. They're in a situation where they're behind a computer and
sure.
they are not talking to people. So when they
Mhm.
get the opportunity to talk to someone, let alone someone who can relate, they want to hold on to that. And
They
so
take advantage of it. Yeah. It-
exactly. Yeah, and
well,
not
and
in a
that's
bad way,
also
and not in a bad
no,
way.
no, no. Advantage
Yes,
isn't compassion. That's the difference we're
exactly.
talking about. The
Yes.
people pleasing being a habit from fear,
Yep.
and seeking the smile seeking being something that's compassionate or empathetic, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's more of what that is. And you're right. In this day and age, you never know who's going through what, who
Mhm.
needs to say something, and you never know. Just listening, just
Yeah.
listening to somebody,
Yeah.
can do a world of good. So on that note, why don't we take a break so that people can continue to listen to us and listen to our empathy? But let's take a break and then we will talk about the last two or three topics that talk about the differences between people pleasing and seeking smiles. So, folks, stay right there. Go smile at somebody randomly, act of kindness, and we'll be right back. Hey, folks, welcome back from that break. This is the latest episode of Cruzin with the Coaches, a conversation with Julie and Lee. We've been talking about people pleasing and smile seeking. Had to say that slow. Becomes a tongue twister if you try to say it too fast, right? Um, but really just talking about the differences. And how people pleasing has come about. It can come about from, typically your past as a kid, but if you carry that on into adulthood, you might want to look at why, are the reasons that you're trying to always say yes, and when you might need to say no sometimes. So the next topic that the article brought up, let me bring that up here, is authenticity. And this one can be probably difficult because there's a lot of folks. I mean, authenticity, being your true self, and I don't want to get on this coach speak here, but you got to be real, right? You just got to be real. So it talks about the people pleasing is it may involve doing or saying things that are not really true, or you're doing it because you're being nice. And seeking a smile is genuine, like it's real. And so I think that's I can't really say any better than that, right? Being authentic is just being real. Um, and that's what you got to do. So it's authenticity is hard to define, but it's just being real, right? It's
I
being.
was gonna say, it's not
True.
only hard to define,
Hmm.
but it's hard to fake.
Ooh,
So if you
nice.
are not coming from a space that is authentic, you
Hmm.
will know a people pleaser right away. Because
Very
the fact of the matter is, if you are, again, constantly saying yes and constantly, eventually the things that you are being asked to do, and then if you are not completing them, it, you can't hide that. You know what I mean? And so if you are not being authentic in saying what you actually are capable of doing and completing it,
true. Hmm.
people will eventually get to know that. Does
And
that
they,
make
like you
sense?
said, they see through it, or
Correct.
they might even start asking more outrageous stuff just to see what they can get away with, because you're
Sure.
like, oh, so they, they make that report that's due Friday, and this, and can you pick up the dry cleaning, and then can you go wash my dog? I mean,
Right, right.
like, and if you say yes, you're either a personal assistant or you're a people pleaser, and you need to
Yeah.
say no. You
Yeah.
know,
And you're setting yourself up for failure for sure.
well, and even back to that example of my conversation in the line for getting coffee.
Mhm.
If I was being inauthentic, and if the first thing out of my mouth had been, "Hey, here's this QR code. Why don't you sign it up, be a client?" Right? That, like, wait, I just asked what's good here at the coffee shop.
Or let me buy
Like,
you coffee. Here's my QR code. Like, really? Thanks,
right.
sir.
It wasn't it wasn't anything about that, but through the conversation and being true, right? I
Right.
literally was just having a conversation with her. And it became this, man, I really don't know what to do with my life. Maybe I can help.
Hmm.
And there you go.
Yep.
So authenticity is something that's hard to define, hard to apply, but it's also hard to fake.
Hmm.
Cannot fake authenticity for sure. So the next one is these smiles, right? So in people pleasing, and this was kind of hard for me to. I was reading. I was like, I'm not sure I get this one. But in people pleasing, your smiles are forced, right? It's almost like you're supposed to be grateful for the person you're pleasing, or what they're asking you to do. You're supposed to be nice about it. In seeking, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, and so just with hearing what you're saying, like as far as you didn't quite
Hmm.
know how to take this one. Like for
Yeah.
me, the way I read it and how I understood it is,
Hmm.
you ever come across those people who are having a dialogue almost as if they are on a television show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right? And so that's what I read into when I read that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, like that's so true." Like
Mm,
like
I see what you're
you're
saying.
forcing the smile, you're forcing the dialogue, you're forcing the conversation, and
Mhm.
it's coming off as though you were on a sitcom waiting for the people around you for the, I don't know, the
Or for
audience
the
laughter.
the laugh track, right? You're in, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're just like,
Or what was the show with Ashton Kutcher when you were being
oh, the
pranked or
70s.
something?
Oh,
Th-
yes.
When you yeah, I can't remember the name of
Oh,
it now, right?
punked, punked.
Yes.
Yes. Like
Like
you're looking around like, okay, are these
mm,
people like do these people talk to each other like this at home? Like what is going on right now? You
right.
know? So yeah,
I
like
can see that.
if
So
it's
then
forced,
you're sitting there like
yeah,
eh,
you're like,
yeah, yeah. Cringe moment, smiling.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're cringing. They aren't. You are.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, definitely. Or the seeking smiles part of this is where it's I guess again like it's a genuine expression, right?
Mhm.
Or actually, I have another thing to share. In this was in training. This was like 4 years ago, I think,
Okay.
where we had to do an exercise. It's called a silent exercise, and we're in a room of 5,000 people at this conference, right? And you have to find somebody across the room, and the exercise is to get something across to this person without any words, right? So you could not say your name, couldn't say, oh, hey, I'm so and so, whatever I'm from. You had to go to this person and stare them right in the eyes. It's like, oh, okay, that's already intense as it is.
Right.
So then I ended up finding this older woman across the aisle. So then exercise it's like a 5 minute exercise, but you have to just keep staring the whole time. And as you're staring, you start to smile a little bit, like your good intentions, but then you have to touch the person's heart, right? So you have to touch the person's heart. And I was being cautious because I'm like, well, wait a minute,
She's
not trying
female.
to
Yeah,
act like I'm
she
trying to
got
cop a
you don't
feel,
even
right?
I
Like
already know. Yeah.
that,
She got breastises.
that's the thing. Like I have to think about that. So it had
Yes.
to be real careful, but still going with the exercise, right?
Right.
So on and on again, we keep going through, and I was trying to get across to her that she is as strong enough and powerful enough to be this coach that she wants to be. Don't know her from anyone, right?
Right.
So then you have to slowly pull your hand back. Can you still feel the energy? All this stuff. Exercise over. You don't
Mhm.
even get to say, hey, but what I noticed is as we went through it, she then grabbed my hand, like was holding hands, right? While we're standing there. Then the exercise was like, oh, then hold your partner's hands, right? All this stuff. Like we were almost moved to tears, or like just from looking and smiling.
Mhm.
So find out the next day that this particular and she was a white woman, older, was sharing with everyone that she could find that one, she had had a fear of men, first of all.
Okay.
Second, had a fear of black men.
Okay.
But all of that, I don't want to say went away, but I
Dissipated.
was able to, yeah,
Dissipated.
dissipated from my intentions.
Mhm.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
First of all, just to be able to share that moment with some that's seeking a smile. That's being authentic, right? That wasn't, oh, I'm going to do this exercise because we're trying to be coaches. No, that wasn't any of that at all.
Right. Right.
And she ended up sharing that at the end of that conference in front of all 5,000 people.
That's
And I was
awesome.
then, well, they made me stand up. Like, where is the guy still here? It's like, you kidding me? Like, it, I was only being in the moment doing the coaching stuff. I was like, wow. Anyhow, I wanted to share that because I get that part deeply, when
Right.
it's authentic and when you're moved to that type of thing. That's what sharing a smile is really all about, you know?
And I mean, smiling itself changes the energy. Like it's undeniable. Like if somebody
Mhm.
walks into a room and they look pissed off, like do you really want to approach that person? You know what I mean? So like if your mentality is you see someone and they're pissed off looking, do you
Going
say want to, no, but like is your mindset I want to go and change that for that person? Or
True.
is your mindset like, yeah, I'm going to the other side of the room. You know what I
Or
mean?
and it might be also reading body language at that point. Maybe their faces. but maybe their body language shows more openness, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So there's a difference with that. Or we could be doing the show like this the whole time.
Right.
And not but I don't know if that would work for us because and then people would be like, "Ooh, they're
Yeah.
not people pleasing or seeking smiles." So
No, no. They're just there.
yeah, like, no, we'll pass on. We'll pass on. But the next topic is choice. And a lot of times the people pleasing can feel like it's not a choice, right? And the seeking the smiles is an intentional act. Like you're doing that on purpose. You're smiling to brighten someone's day or again say hello or whatever it is. Um what are your thoughts about the choice in how people pleasing can feel like a choice or feel like it's
People
not a
yeah, feel
choice?
like
Right.
yeah, I was gonna say it feels more like a chore. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's again,
Yes.
it's a self-inflicted chore because if
Mm,
I think that's the piece that you always have to be careful with. It's what you volunteer yourself for, and so
mm,
if you are that person who is always people pleasing, you always find that you are doing things for others that will not necessarily be reciprocated. And
mm,
I mean, and not that there's nothing wrong with that. There's people who can live their life with, going out and doing things for others with no reciprocation and be fine. But
sure.
when you are being taken advantage of, or you feel as though you are being taken advantage of, because that's the key, is are you actually being taken advantage of, or are you putting yourself out there so much because
Mm.
you feel that need for validation through doing tasks for other people? That's a whole other
That's a
animal.
whole nother ballgame. Yeah. Well, and
Yes,
like recognizing your part that you play in it. Are you putting yourself out there, like you said,
correct,
or when you feel it, is it something that you haven't created but keep taking on? You know?
correct, correct.
And then if you actually if you feel like you're people pleasing, do you or have you had these conversations with the people that you're pleasing and saying, "Hey, hold on. I'm
Right,
feeling certain kind of way," because maybe the other person doesn't really know
right.
either.
True.
That is a
That's very
possibility.
possible. That is very possible. Yes. Which I know I'm not a people person because people get pissed off, and that's okay. I am not one. I used to, like I said earlier, I lived my first half of my life being a people pleaser. I literally
Yep,
did. But then I felt like I was being taken advantage of. And so
and
then
you
I
said, "Never
recognized
again."
I'm
Like,
not
that's not
doing it.
happening. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not
No.
doing it. So,
Nope. Yeah, you never wanna be feel like you're put in a box,
right,
of
right.
being taken advantage of. Never.
Yes, and it does. It takes a level of self-awareness to understand
Mhm.
whether you are actually being a people pleaser or are you a person who likes to please people? You know what I mean? Because
Yes, 'cause those are
it's
2
like,
different there's a very
yes,
fine line between those
very
2.
fine line, very
Yeah.
fine line.
Well, the article did reference things that we were just talking about. Like if you feel like you are people pleasing, take a look at what's going on. Ask yourself, is it worthwhile what you're doing? And sometimes so like it says here, bringing about smiles is also taking care of ourselves, right?
Right,
You don't have to do what other people want you to be accepted, right?
correct,
Like,
correct.
what do we say? No is a complete sentence,
It
you
is,
know?
it is.
And the article also mentioned here too, um, like if you recognizing that you're people pleasing and you want to change it, then start looking at where this habit may have come from, right?
Right,
I'm not going to get into the therapy or psychotherapy of things because that's when you want to find like professional help for that.
right,
If you really if the people pleasing goes that deeply for you, but you can take a moment and stop and think about the habits you currently have now and what you do and how you go about these things. Maybe there is a small level of it that you want to recognize so that you can change it into doing things out of authenticity out of compassion, out of reciprocity. It's not 50-50, but reciprocity, you know?
Correct. Correct.
So,
So, and if it's making you feel overwhelmed or anxious because you're just not
mhm,
getting everything that everybody wants you to do done, maybe that's saying a whole lot more of what you're taking on and what you can actually do. Again, it comes back to capacity.
100%. If you got to know what your limits are
Correct.
before you push them too far, because then the straw is going to just break. You know, that straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep. Yep. And
You
it
don't want
depends on what you're balancing. Are you balancing work? Are you balancing home? Are you balancing children? Like if somehow a ball is always dropping, then that means you are definitely people pleasing and the person you are not pleasing is yourself.
and you got to evaluate that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Which ball do you let stay dropped?
Right. Right.
Not picking that one up again.
Nope, I'm done.
Well, you guys, we appreciate your subscription, and if you haven't, hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate you being here on another episode of Cruising with the Coaches, conversation with Julie and Lee. Keep sharing all the shorts that we got. Look at the fun you're missing, but hopefully you've come away with something that you're not people pleasing and you're actually looking out for yourself. Until next time, signing off.